Ingle. Some movers and shakers. Well, Stephen Johnson came up into 5th, having started from 9th. Stephen Richards into 9th, having started from 14th. Looking further down to Cameron McLean, he started 19th, came up to 12th. Remember that Cameron came out of 30th from race 1 yesterday, and look at Glenn Seaton back there in 30th. He started up on the second row of the grid and had that problem with the front right tyre after the air dam cut down on it from that sloppy start without the lights and having to use the flag. But certainly, as I said before, it's been a great battle between Scaife and Ingle, and Russell is with Grant.
Russell Ingle, great drive to 3rd. You've almost pulled in Mark Scaife there.
Yeah, I was hoping to reverse it, what he did to me yesterday, but look, it was, I mean, the car's going better. I mean, it's such a hard track to set up for, you know. We adjusted the setup and we've gone for come on later in the race, but trouble is it's lacking a bit of speed in the middle of the race, so you're sort of juggling, but hopefully we'll get it right in the 3rd one.
Looks like you've got a different attack to the championship, more for points this time. I suppose we could almost call you not the enforcer, but the conserver. The conserver. What a dreary name, the conserver. I prefer the enforcer. Yeah, look, mate, look, you have to, but look, I'll tell you what, I'm having a go, and if I can get on the tail one of these guys, I'll tell you what, you'll see some enforcing. Road tested the 2 formats back to back. Do you have a preference for the sprint or the endurance format now?
Look, I still got a soft spot for the sprint races, to be quite honest. I wish there was more of them this year. It's just more intense, and you can just push on for the whole race and not conserve. Endurance racing, the longer races, you still have to be a bit careful, but this one's me.
Okay, good luck, and we'll see you in race 3.
Cheers, thanks, all right.
Earlier we had a look at how the officials keep the V8 supercar drivers under control. Now it's time to have a look at how the officials keep the cars to the regulations and to the letter of the rule book. And here it is. This is it, Tiga's V8 supercar homologation papers. It's a 27-page document. There's one for the Falcon and for the Commodore. Now basically it's a set of specifications, or a blueprint if you like, that the teams follow when they're building a car to the regulations, and then Tiga's technical guys check or measure against this when it comes to doing their random checks throughout the weekend. One of the guys involved with those technical changes or checks is Ray Robbins. Ray, thanks for joining us, and maybe you can run through just 1 or 2 of the things that you guys do during the weekend.
Okay, this particular jig here is for checking the suspension points that are fixed in the body that can't be moved. So what we've got to do is remove the suspension out of the car, and then we sit that in the points, and we put a pin through here, here and here. This is the top shocker point, this is the top wishbone, this is the lower control arm, this is the caster bar. And this jig just goes in there, and every measurement has to be within a 20 mil sphere of those points. And this tab here is the elongated point from the Tiga datum at the rear of the car.
Another critical dimension in the suspension that has to be constantly monitored is the track width of the front end. That is the distance between the wheels side to side. And the Tiga technical boys have got a very special device for measuring this as well.
On the AU Falcon, the mudguard has to be 4mm in from this gauge, which is set up for Commodore because the Commodore's got the widest track, and no part of the wheel is allowed to protrude past this down to hub height.
Another very important part in V8 supercar performance is the aerodynamics. But the Tiga technical boys have made sure that's pretty tightly buttoned down too. Have a look at the wing plate here on the end of the Falcon. There's a tightly regulated number of holes, and the wing can only be adjusted within those dimensions. There's also a second check they make throughout the weekend.
And this gauge here shows us that it fits the boot lid perfectly down here and here. And here, no part of the wing shall protrude any further than this gauge here, which is the coinciding point of the rear bumper bar. And then this gauge here goes down to make sure that the wing is not too flat, because if it's too flat, it goes out of the 260mm box, which this shows.
Thanks, guys. As you can see, the Tiga technical people are working very hard all weekend to make sure the cars, like the drivers, are playing by the rules.
It's a tough job scrutineering, because some of the engineers in this paddock can certainly get very creative, and they certainly have to keep control of them. Anyway, we've got a little bit of time as we watch the boys on the bikes before we go to race 3, so let's go back into the paddock. Barry, who have you got for us?
Yeah, thanks, Neil. I'm with Steve Johnson, who's feeling a bit second-hand. What's the matter then, Steve?
Mate, I don't know, I seem to have contracted some sort of virus. I've got no idea what it is. I can see you smiling, don't you? So
didn't have fun getting it, did you?
No, I didn't. But I got it. I just went to bed last Saturday, woke up on Sunday and couldn't move, and I haven't been able to move since. And since then, on Tuesday, Wednesday, I've had to do a couple of Ford functions, and same with up here. And I mean, I've just been dead. I mean, I went home last night, got back to the hotel at 6 and slept every 2 hours, you know, woke up until sort of 7 this morning. But
That's what screwed you qualifying up, was it?
yeah, mate, I couldn't see. My eyes are watering. I'm aching all over, and you know, my kidneys are killing me. I can't sit in the seat properly. So, yeah, I'm not having a very comfortable time this weekend.
Great year for you, though, isn't it? What a massive change around, massive weight off your shoulders.
Yeah, it's been fantastic. I mean, the whole Shell crew have worked hard, and you know they deserve as much credit as I do with the change in form, really. But the car's great. I'm apart from this weekend, I'm feeling great, and you know, really, I've got the championship well in sight, and I think that it's doable from here.
And last year, you know, your lowest ebb, what did you think? That people were saying, oh, he's only got the drive because he's Dick Johnson's son and all that stuff. Could you hear all that?
Yeah, oh, you hear all that, you know, and you know, I think you've heard just about as much as I have. So to be able to you know, pick the form up now and really give it to those guys up front, you know, like Rusty and Scafie and even Paul, you know, I mean, they're hard racers and they've been around a long time, and you know, I'm sick of hearing about Craig Lowndes all the time, you know, so I thought I'd better do something about it.
What about in that last race? Was it confusing at the start? Because, well, what happened with the lights? Because all we heard was a lights flag or whatever. What happened?
Well, we were just sitting there, and there's about 4 or 5 sets of lights, you know, so the people behind can see high ones and there's low ones, and I'm looking at all of them and I'm thinking, where's the red light, you know, because he said 5 seconds, and it was probably about a 7 or 8 before there was no light, and I thought, so I saw him bring the flag out. And as soon as that flag moved, I was off, so I didn't waste any time. But yeah, a little bit confusing. But if everyone's looking up there at the right spot, you know, there's no problem.
And what about for the third race? What about tyres? How are you off for tyres?
Mate, we're looking really good. I think we've only, you know, not even a quarter used our tyres, our rear tyres too. So, I mean, I've just been trying to drive it really straight. It's very hard starting 14th. When you're fighting your way through, it really wears your tyres out quickly when you're passing people. But when you're out in front, you can look after them. That. So I've looked after mine fairly well. So I think we're looking pretty good for the last race.
Well, for someone that's knackered, you've done good.
Mate, I had to get scooped out of the car in the last race, so I don't think I'll be sleeping too bad tonight.
Okay, I won't ask you how you called it.
Yeah, thanks, mate.
Well, yesterday we saw Mark Scaife hunt down and pass Russell Ingall in the closing laps of race 1. Today, Russell Ingall tried to do the same thing, but just didn't quite manage to pull it off. Gee, it looked like you were just treading on eggshells toward the end there.
Well, I just said to the guys about it, it was like driving in the wet, Mark. When the tyres get so bad and they just move around, they're so sideways everywhere, you have a moment every lap. I mean, you arrive under brakes and think, you know, I'm almost gone, and you get around and, you know, it's hard work.
Well done. Now, one of the questions I wanted to ask you, we saw you on the warpath in the pits at Canberra after that race. The stewards have since looked at the footage and cleared it of anything, but can you just explain what was going on there?
Well, what I was disappointed about was that those two guys, Rodney Forbes and Steve Reid, were running into each other, or Rodney had hit him a couple of times, and they were having their own sort of private battle, and I was sort of back about a car length from them, letting them have their own battle. And at the end of the race, when it eventually happened, Rodney gave Steve a bit of a hit at the way into the corner. Steve got wide, and then all of a sudden it was like they were brake tested, and I just ran straight into the back of them. And I went down to find out what happened. That's exactly what I did. And when I walked into their garage, one of their team members, just so happens that drives the car sometimes, he ripped it into me and said it was my misjudgment. And effectively, I wasn't even involved in the accident. I was sort of like the bloke at the end of the traffic queue that just ran into the back of the bloke.
Like a red rag or a bull.
Exactly right. So in the end, I mean, I was upset that I thought originally that was quite malicious, but it wasn't. It was Steve just missed a gear. He just went from first to second gear, missed a gear, and Rodney Forbes ran into him, and I ran into him very hard. So I wasn't that happy about it, but that's how it was.
Now, you've still got a little bit of work to do today. One more race to come. And you've got 8 tyres that are looking pretty second-hand. How's your final set looking? Well,
there's a lot of tyre strategy here now. A lot of guys would have used one set and one set. We didn't do it that way, so we've got 2 real good tyres, but we don't know where to put them on the car, whether we put them on the left front and left rear or just across the back, so we'll see what happens.
Hang in there.
Thanks, mate.
Well, tyres are certainly all the chat as we prepare for race 3. Scaife will start second, Stephen Johnson 5th. We're back after the break with the 3rd heat from Perth. Almost set now for race 3 from Barbagallo Raceway. Now, this is a bizarre situation. We're looking at the Karsha entry of Mark Larkham on the warm-up lap coming out of Cold Corner turn 6. It looks like the right rear wheel has parted company. Mark's out of the car and he's safe. And the word that we're hearing from our folks down there is that this car may well have rolled over on the way either to the wall or after it's bounced off the wall. Very disappointed Larkham Motorsport team. They've had a dreadful weekend. He was to have started 20th from this field. You can see that there's some scars on the bonnet and there's a split in the windscreen and a little bit of gravel rash on the roof as well, and Mark will not believe this. Something bizarre has happened there, so he will not take his place on the grid, and that car's been removed. Here's the situation after 2 races for this particular 6th round. Radicic has a margin which you'd expect after pole and 2 wins over Scape. Then Ingle, Murphy, Craig Lowndes with 126, and then in the second Kmart car, Todd Kelly, and the cars on their warm-up lap. Mark, can you believe Mark Larkham?
Just goes from bad to worse, doesn't it? He had that enormous shunt at Oran Park last year, which he's still recovering from. Then one at Canberra, now one at Barbagallo. Here's how they line up. Paul Radicic and Mark Scape. Once again, it's the way it was in race 2. Russell Ingle and Greg Murphy fill out the second row. Stephen Johnson fighting his way up through the field with Craig Lowndes alongside. Todd Kelly and Jason Bright continuing to make his late charge.
Then Stephen Richards for FTR. Cameron McConville, a good run so far in the Optus entry. Stephen Ellery, Cameron McLean, John Bower, Garth Panda. Been a tough one for the local lad.
Talk about hard days. Brad Jones, Paul Wheel, Trevor Ashby. Mark Larkham was going to start from 20th, but as you see, he's out of competition. Rodney Forbes and Larry Perkins, Anthony Tratt, and Jason Richards, the Kiwi, out of 24.
Further back, Faulkner, Romano, Miller, Bernard, Ricciardello, then Glenn Seaton back in 30th, Paul Morris and Jason Bargwana, who spent some time down in the sand in that second race.
Just a bit of an update from the pit lane. It seems Marcus Ambrose is the only driver out there who will have a green set. It's a green set of tyres on the rears only, so he's coming for 15th position. Watch out for him. He looks like he's going to be in for a bit of a charger. As for the rest of the teams, well, I think it might be a bit of a Torval and Dean experience out there this afternoon.
Right about that, Grant. It'll be skating. Mark Scape. He starts on the front row from position 2.
Keep in mind, if Scape manages to win this final heat, Paul Radicic only has to finish 4th or higher to win the round overall. And if Radicic manages to take victory here, that'll be 3 Ford Shell round wins in a row. And you've got to look back to 1995 since the last time that happened for the Blue Oval. So it's been a real turnaround in the Shell Championship Series in 2001.
Have a look at astronaut Radicic there. He's got more hoses, wires, pipes, dingles and dangles hanging from that helmet. He gets very hot, so he's got the thing well ventilated. They're just pushing him back into position. He's slightly outside his starting grid box there.
And the message today would be, Houston, we do not have a problem. Totally dominant so far. Pole position, 2 race wins. If he takes pole and 3 race wins, it'll be the first time since Glenn Seaton achieved that feat back in 1997. So the Ford team's been out of the winner's circle for a long time.
Bit of form up the back of the pack there with Seaton up the back and also Bargwana. We are set. And the lights work, and again Radicic makes an excellent start. Scape goes with him and covers down the inside, but it's not strong enough. Radicic, Ingle up the inside, and I think he might make a move on Scape here. It's going to be very tight through the first corner. Scape will not relent. They go side by side to the S's. Radicic, Scape, Ingle is forced back, so Scape hung in there. That was a good bit of driving, and then Murphy in 4.
A lot of people think that's no man's land on the outside through turn 1, but as you can see, when the switchback happens through the S's, your car's actually pretty well positioned. Scape took advantage of that beautifully. He's up to second, holding on to second after Ingle got the jump on him off the line.
He held his ground, and there's a lot of marbles up there. It's quite a difficult thing to do. Look how close he is in the back of Radicic as they go through 6. This is the area where Larkham had that wheel come off the car, had pitched him into the wall, and he's out of this event. The battle rages. Scape's got an excellent run off turn 6. He makes a run. It's a crisscross as they head down to the braking area at 7.
Expect Scape to have some good speed in this last race. His tyre strategy has worked pretty well. He's got 2 fresh tyres on this car, which are critical this late in the day. He's got plenty of speed in this opening lap.
It's going to be interesting when we get sort of half race distance and then see who hasn't got any tyres left. Oh,
Hearing from race control, yeah. Stop go for Russell Ingle. Not quite sure what the reason is. Let's have a look.
Well, that'll be, I imagine, for creeping off the line. Maybe it may have been adjudged a jump start. Look at this battle in turn 1. That's Scape on the outside, Russell in behind Radicic, and I'm surprised that Mark was able to hold his ground out there because it's usually dusty and dirty, very difficult. Also, we hear stop-go penalty for Marcus Ambrose, again for a false start. So 2 people penalised at the start of this third race, and that really cruels Ingles' otherwise good weekend.
This is the critical one as they build up to speed coming over the hill once again. Their first flying lap time. Radicic has managed to hold the pace down to low to mid-59s throughout the day. Let's see what his times drift out in this last races. That selection of 8 tyres, they're getting right down to what they got left.
You look at Radic's his car at the end of both races. Oh, look at this. Look. Stephen Ellery.
No.
Oh, look at that. Well, it's very lucky, Steve Ellery.
He was very lucky not to get T-boned by about half a dozen cars there. I think that was with one of the Valvoline cars. Need to see it again, but quite an extraordinary situation where they got a little bit out of shape coming off the final turn, and Ellery just got shoved to the inside. Here comes Ambrose for his stop-go. Ping-pong back turns to green. Away he goes.
That is not somewhere you want to be broadside to half the V8 Supercar pack.
Oh, there's Stephen Ellery's he's a bit rapid at the moment.
59.97. Paul Radicic's first flying lap. 59.98. First Scape, who's stuck right up behind the bumper of the Shell Ford. This looks like a real battle here.
And you see that Russell's got his left indicator on. He's showing Murphy that he's going to come in. He's taken the flag. Scape's got the headlights on. There's a little bit of impatience there. He had great first lap cold tyre speed. You saw Ingle peel off, so he comes in for his compulsory stop. Well, not his compulsory stop, it's for an enforced stop.
So Radicic starts his building program again. He's pumped out 3/10 on Scape that time around. Found 2 or 3/10 in that lap. That's exactly what he did in race 2.
You know, I don't understand this sometimes. I'm sure that they'll have decided that Russell's done something, but have a go at the penalty. I mean, if you're creeping at the start, you know, so he might have made a metre. Yeah, he's lost him, and he's at the back of the field. It's not a just penalty.
It's not a just penalty, and it just ruins a race, doesn't it? I mean, it's just...
I know it's a difficult thing to sort out, because what do? If you don't have a hard-edged rule, then everybody will be creeping at the start. So clearly I know it's something that needs to be controlled, but gee...
But as you say, the penalty doesn't fit the crime at all.
No, it's very difficult call. You want to try and stop people from gaining an unfair advantage at the start, but equally to drop out of third position and to end up at the back of the field, whoa, that is a serious penalty.
Good performance here from Cameron McConville. Let's have the Shell Helix replay of what happened with Ellery.
I see, so he's given one of the Valvoline cars a tap, and that was Tander, and then Tander comes back across to take his ground, and Ellery ends up in the weeds. Here it is again from the front angle. Boom, poof. And so Garth just moving back to cover his ground.
Cameron McLaren, his eyes were hanging out on springs.
I reckon Steve Ellery's would have been even further out of his head. How lucky was he?
Yeah, really incredible.
Could have had 12 cars drilling into his door if things had gone a different way. He managed to spin out of the way. Radicic has not been able to shake the Holden Racing Team shadow. Here comes Larry Perkins, the other Castrol Commodore, in trouble. So both the Castrol cars suffering. There goes his teammate Russell Ingle right at the back of the pack.
So he's gone off at turn 4 there, so not a good day for the Castrol team. And whether Larry was unaided or somebody else was involved there, hard to see. We're on board with Mark Scape as they rejoin the start-finish straight. That's the margin first to second. We'll see what it is. Numerically, it's 0.49. That's what half a second looks like.
That's interesting.
Cars.
Yeah, the last 3 laps, he's managed to just pump that out by a tenth these laps. So he's just starting to build a little bit of a buffer on the Holden Racing Team car. 59.6, 59.6, Radicic and Scape. They're both matching each other's pace at the moment. And then this battle for the minors. You've got Murphy, Johnson, Lowndes and Kelly. This is looking rearward from Lowndes. Kelly, car 15. And Lowndes has really been fighting a lot of rear-end grip difficulties. Now, one fellow that shouldn't be with us here at the moment, who was supposed to take his place on the grid, Mark Larkham. What on earth happened out there?
Well, Cromley, what's been probably our toughest weekend ever just got tougher. I'm not sure, mate. Something's given way at the rear of the car on the warm-up lap coming out here of the bowl. The car's got out on the sand and it's dug in and just flipped over. And quite extraordinary for that to happen on the warm-up lap. So,
did you have a clip of pace going at the time, or were you going quite slowly?
No, your normal procedure, warming up the tyres, giving a bit of stick going up the hill there, and of course when it lost its wheel, it skewed left, dug into the sand, and over it went. So unbelievable.
And it hasn't, as you said before, it hasn't actually been a barrel of laughs all weekend anyway, because for some reason set up here this weekend has been a horror story for you.
I've got to admit, Cromley, we haven't been able to get on top of it. We've thrown all manner of things.
Well, Mark, thanks for dropping up, and stay with us and enjoy it from this perspective. I can assure you it's not quite as much fun, though.
Got that right.
Can't get any worse, Mark, unless you fall down the stairs off the way out of the commentary room.
Here's the replay, and it's Larry Perkins and Brad Jones. So that was the reason that Larry ended up out there in Sand Central.
So the two Castrol cars going to the back of the pack. Another incident, Paul Romano and John Faulkner.
And John doesn't quite pull it up in time.
Whoops, Ricky Ardello in trouble.
Also a report comes through that Glenn Seaton in the FTR Falcon is in the pits. They've got a problem with the engine in that car, Grant.
Yeah, exactly right, Neil. Just looking at the team here, they don't know exactly what it is right now. It sounds pretty rough, I can tell you, a bit like a Mack truck, but another bad day for Glenn Seaton.
Bizarre, considering he qualified on the front row. He should have been in for a good weekend, and then things just went from bad to worse through the succession of heat races. Here's this battle we talked about before between Lowndes and Kelly. This is 5th and 6th. There's a little margin up to Stephen Johnson, and Craig at the moment really being attacked by Kelly, a former teammate, and then those guys indeed have got a fairly reasonable margin back over Stephen Richards, who's 7th.
Tell you what's interesting too is that gap between Radicic and Scaife at the front. It's stabilised. It's 0.48 of a second, so Radicic has not been able to pump out that gap, that commanding lead he had in race 1 and 2. Holden Racing team car is going with him.
But he's consistently quicker, though. Only a fraction, but...
It's down to hundreds, isn't it, Baz? So the order at the moment, Radicic, Scaife just half a second behind the Rat. Greg Murphy in 3rd, Stephen Johnson in 4th, Craig Lowndes in 5th, Todd Kelly 6th. And it's Richards, Bright, Tander and McConville still rounding out the top 10.
You heard in the previous interview that Mark Scaife had retained a cleaner, younger set of tyres for this 3rd race, and clearly he's going to be able to run with Radicic. Some people may have chosen to use set 1 and set 2 in the successive races, and then they'll use their cleanest 30 shirts for the 3rd race, but others have kept a fresher set for the last heat.
Glenn Seaton, can you shed any light on what happened?
The engine's just dropped the cylinder, and we don't know what's either brake or rocker or something like that, so it's just the way it goes.
Heartbreaking, another performance.
Yeah, it's naturally the car's had good speed this weekend and been caught up with some incidents, and also the engine to have a problem we got now is a bit of bad luck.
You must be happy to see the Ford up the front, because the last time that Ford took a clean sweep was 97, and that was you at Eastern Creek, and we might do it again today.
Yeah, it's fantastic for Ford. It's great what they're putting in. They're starting to get something out of it.
I'll let you get back to it. Thanks.
Thank you.
Yeah, those FTR cars have shown a lot of speed on a number of occasions this year, but they've just haven't been able to close the deal for whatever reason. Anyway, great shame for Glenn Seaton. Here's a bit of a challenge. Jason Bright, hard under brakes, sneaks up the inside, not quite close enough to Stephen Richards. Bright continuing to come from the rear of the top 20 as he's done so many times this year. He's up in 8th place.
Jason really had the rear brakes locked on, chirping into turn 1 there. Mark Larkin, that is, not Osler. I'm just curious to get your thoughts on the issue of setup around here. It seems a simple track, 2.4k, 7 turns. We all know it's abrasive. Why, in your opinion, do you think that so many people have so much trouble here?
I think the nature of the surface, Neil, it's very, very unique. As you can see, there's a lot of sand around, which has sort of taken the tops off the stones, and there's not much surface area, if you like. And I think if your car's not right in the window for this circuit, it exaggerates the problem. And we've thrown all manner of things at our cars. A lot of people have, I know, this weekend, and really haven't come up with any answers. So I guess we've got to go away and have a rethink about how we approach here next year and come up with something completely different.
Any kind of luck you won't have to approach it next year.
Yeah, well, who knows?
Look at this battle between McLean and Bow, and it's also on with Tander and Bright. Stephen Richards in here as well. There's several vigorous brawls going on. The recurring theme when you talk to people through the paddock is their cars lacking sensitivity. They change 101 things except the door handles, and nothing changes the basic lap speed of the car.
That's the difficulty we've certainly had. It's interesting with Glenn there dropping a cylinder. In fact, he may have been better off staying out. I mean, to run on 7 cylinders around here can be an advantage. Yeah, actually, with the loss of power
might be better than 600. Here's Tony Longhurst and Brad Jones. Bradley does a bit of sprint car racing and gets all cranked up and sideways coming off turn 1. And he may even get assaulted by one of the Lansvale cars, and I think they've done damage. Yeah, there's damage to the car after that.
New tyre going on in the right rear corner. And looks like Brad's going to get back into action. Radicic and Scaife continue that battle at the front, still hovering around a half a second gap. Murphy, lonely ride in 3rd. Stephen Johnson doing a good job in 4th. Lowndes in 5th. Positions remaining fairly static at the moment. Todd Kelly in 6th. Stephen Richards in 7th. And Jason Bright rounds out the top 8.
Further back, there's a battle also involving Tander. Then we've got McConville, McLean, Bauer, Wheel, Barbagallo, Richards and Longhurst. Stay with us. More of race 3 after the... Coming up to lap 12 of 20 with Paul Radisich still leading, but unlike the first and second races where he just drove off into the distance, the margin is still pretty slim. It's 0.66 of a second, so Skaife continuing to keep the pressure on Radisich. He's looking for a hat-trick, a clean sheet. Pole, win, win, win. Skaife's going to do everything he can to stop him, but remember also that we've now reached pretty close to the halfway point of the championship, so it's important for Skaife to continue to accrue points. He came into this weekend as the championship leader, and here he is as we go on board, busy as ever. And the last thing he wants to do in a desperate lunge for a win is to throw away a little bag of points. Let's have a listen to what it's like to get around here for a lap and pay attention to the cautious use of the throttle. This battle here continues between Bright and Richards, and Richards gets one out and one wide in the marbles out there and gets all sideways. We had to go away from Mark Skaife, but that gives us some idea of a lap around Barbagallo Raceway, and at this point in the weekend, considering tyre wear, they're all just treading very gently out there at the moment to get through to the flag.
After seeing that, you said there's no way that Radisich is just looking after his tyres and he's going as hard as he can go.
They're all absolutely 10/10ths, but even on that last lap, the margin remained 0.67, Barry, so there was only 1/100th difference between their lap time. This is Tander.
A competitive run from Cameron McConville here, the most competitive run so far by the Lansvale racing team. Very few V8 supercar teams based in Sydney, and they're having a good run here. McConville's currently equal 25th in the championship, so he's way down in points, but it's a new operation, their first in-house built VX Commodore coming on stream earlier this year, and Cameron and the team under Wally Story start to gel into quite a formidable operation.
Cameron McLean's done well actually, because he came from way back in qualifying.
Yeah, originally in the first race he was back there in 30th, so for him to be 11th at the moment is a pretty fair effort, and we'll see if we can pick him up. There he is. He's just behind Bradley at the moment. Interesting, the last lap through, Skaife took a few hundredths out of the lead. It's down to 0.57, so just a fraction over half a second. So, you know, it's one of those margins where you cannot afford to miss a gear, lock a brake, miss an apex, or the bloke in second will climb all over you.
Well, we've seen so many times today, haven't we? The guy gets a foot off a line and it's just like ice.
As far as Cameron McLean is concerned, the reason why he might be doing so well in this race is he's one of the few drivers to actually have a whole set of tyres which have only done about 4 laps. Some that he just kept in the corner of the garage after qualifying and just pulled it out as a card for this race.
Before race 3, he said, look what we've got for you.
Yeah, look at this. Stephen Johnson, very close to the back of Greg Murphy's car. Challenging for third. Murphy's been running on his own, but Junior's slowly been closing the gap to the Kmart car. And he's right on him now. This is a great drive from Steve. He is not well, boy.
Yeah, he won't be thinking too much about that right at the moment, though, will he?
The old adrenaline takes over, doesn't it?
Got a big Kmart incentive in front of him at the moment, so he won't be thinking about the snuffles.
The Fords have really come on strong in the last 3 rounds, Mark Larkin. What can you apportion the sudden turn of success with the Blue Oval teams?
I think it really started mid-last year, Mark. Everyone's starting to get their act together. This new under tray helped a lot. Just the overall package, and the teams are all stronger and up to the level.
You'd have to say the cars now are just so evenly matched. There's no longer a parity issue between the two makes.
Isn't it great that we don't talk about that anymore, really?
Yeah,
I think it's fantastic.
I think we should also point out, Mark, that when we talk under trays, both brands have now got a common under tray. So, and that was a significant step that was taken, what, 2/3 of the way through last year to just ensure the most even competition aerodynamically at the front of the cars.
I think you're right, Neil. That was the turning point. What is interesting here, I'm just looking at the times. We're sort of up into over a minute now in a 60-second lap. We're 3 seconds slower than qualifying. I think that says it all about the surface here that the people are trying to deal with, the drivers are dealing with out there.
To 0.97, Radicic is almost out to a second lead over Scaife, which is significant. And you consider for the last 16 laps they've been punching out lap times within hundredths of a second of each other. It's monitoring around half a second. Now he's got it out to almost a second. So it doesn't sound like much, but he's actually doubled his lead.
And the message went through on the radio to Greg Murphy last time through that if Stephen Johnson gets fired, do not panic. You'll still be third overall on the day. But Murphy's still indicating at the moment that he's not going to give it away without a battle. 3 laps to go. Stephen Johnson is hustling, looking for a way through. The point that Mark Larkin makes is a good one. When you start talking about 60-second lap times around here or high 59s, suddenly the braking markers that you had when you had clean, grippy tyres, they've all moved out by not a few metres, but by tens of metres. You can't attack the throttle in any way, shape or form like you did when you had grip. You've got to change the rhythm and the way in which you mesh with the car. You can't hustle it. You have to kid the car and caress the car to get it home to the flag.
And look at these guys racing. I mean, they really are on tenterhooks. Hard to imagine from outside the car, but it's that much harder racing like these two guys are doing in those conditions.
Look at Murph glances at the mirror. Stephen Johnson got a bit of a run at him that time, but may not be enough. And Greg's awake up. He would just run a little bit wider going into the corner. He's allowed to do that under the motor racing law. He can move 2 or 3 feet either way. 2 laps to go this time, so 2 minutes of racing for Stephen Johnson. Do you have a go or not?
60.54 for Radicic, a 60.68 for Scaife. It's out to just over 1 second now. So Radicic has been able to fend off the Holden Racing Team Challenge here. With less than 2 laps remaining, it could be a clean sweep for the Rat, Barbagallo.
If Stephen Johnson can get this done, it'll have to be out of turn 6 coming out of Kolb Corner. This is 5 over the brow of the hill. It's a bit of a blind brow, and then the fast run down here. There's a big bump on the braking approach into this corner. They've just gone across it there. It tends to light up the inside front tyre and very easy to lock a brake. Now, if Johnson gets a good exit out of here, he might get the run he needs. He has got a couple of Ks on him. This is the best opportunity he's had, but Murphy will move across to the middle of the road.
Hanging on by his fingernails. Oh, look how close Johnson is. Oh,
dear me.
Almost looked like he was going to stick his guard right alongside the right rear wheel of Murphy's car. He just wasn't quite close enough. 1 lap remaining.
Do you think both those guys were on the braking limit then?
Couldn't have got closer than that. Craig Lowndes has his mirrors full of Todd Kelly, so the 2 Kmart Commodores doing a good job inside the top 6.
Order is Radicic, Scaife, Murphy, Johnson, Lowndes, Kelly, Bright, Tander, Richards, McConville, McLean, Bargwana, Bow, Wheel, Richards, Jason Richards, Tony Longhurst, Ingle back up to 17th after that stop-go. Then Ashby 18th, Rodney Forbes and Anthony Tratt 20th.
I think the significance of those leading cars, Neil, it's Ford, Holden, Holden, Ford, Ford, Holden. Good mix amongst that top 6.
More people stayed in the 59s in the latter part of this race than the earlier event. Final lap. And it's going to be all Paul Radicic at the end. It's a remarkable result for him, but can his teammate deal with Greg Murphy? Here comes Radicic, the leader and the ultimate winner.
He's got the lights flashing on and the crowd has gone berserk. Ford fans erupt as Paul Radicic brings it home. 3rd win in a row for Ford in the Shell Championship Series. The first time they've done that since 1995. There's the team owner Dick Johnson and team manager Dean Orr congratulating each other on a job well done. Amazing performance from Paul Radicic. An equally impressive one from Junior Johnson.
Terrific result for the Shell team, and not a bad recovery from Stephen Johnson, who certainly didn't start out with great strength earlier in the weekend. Quickly before we go to the results, thanks Mark Larkin for coming up. I know it's a miserable task to have to come up, but we look forward to seeing you at Calder.
Thanks, Neil.
Now look at this on the Shell Helix replay. The battle continued between Todd Kelly and Craig Lowndes all the way through this last lap. Biff and barged. A tap here and a tap there, but I know that Lowndes got through in the end. He finished in 5th, only just though, and Lowndes takes a bit of road back off him and says, well, I can play that game too. It's spirited out there. There's the winner. He'll pick up 288 points on the day or over the course of the weekend. Excellent performance from Paul Radicic. A good, solid, steady run from Mark Skaife, protecting his championship lead. An excellent recovery from Stephen Johnson there in fourth. He ended up just 4 seconds down. It was certainly much tighter at the top in this one. Then it was Lowndes in fifth after having all that biff and barge with his old mate Todd Kelly. Jason Bright in seventh, and then Garth Panda in eighth. He was down 16 seconds. Stephen Richards, McConville, McLean, Barguana, Bow, Wheel, Richards and Longhurst. And we're back to talk to the winners after this break on your home of motorsport.
Well, Paul Radisich forward or back, and DJR are the pack leaders. A clean sweep. Well done.
What a day, huh? Started out well yesterday, pole, and winning the first race in 2 in a row today. No trouble. Had a bit of brake trouble in that last one, so I just wanted to keep on the island, but everything's going so well, and great to break the Holden dominance in this track.
I'm almost getting sick of hearing the word tyres around here because it's played such an important part. Did you have the best at the end of the day, or is it something you just drive around?
Well, I think our setup worked extremely well, and hats off to the team. They did a great job to give me the car to do the job, and I was just able to drive around at a good, smooth, consistent pace and conserve the tyres. It was a little sticky at the beginning of the race because Mark was all over me like yesterday, and I was able to hold him up and then just sort of stretch things away from there.
Now, last time Ford won 3 consecutive rounds was 1995. Can you do it for the next round?
Who knows? It's so competitive out there, and as you can see, I mean, we were very competitive in Canberra and had a lot of problems, but we're able to bring that speed to a circuit with sweeping corners, and I think we can keep building on it. But if we can do it again, we'll just have to wait and see.
Great drive, well done. We'll let you enjoy it.
Thanks a lot. Thanks, Graham.
Mark Skaife, that looked like a pretty hard day at the office, but a good result, second place.
Well, I said to you after race 2, Mark, that we were, that we were in it, and I reckon in the last race we were much further in it. I mean, our car was very close to Paul's, and we made a few changes to the back of the car for the last race. It looked after the tyres, but it was a really good battle. I mean, there was nothing in it. It was fantastic.
What about these Fords, eh? 3 in a row. You blokes have got some competition all of a sudden.
Oh, look, I think it's great. There's no doubt about it. And, the more that they put the pressure on us, the harder we've got to try, and the challenge is certainly there. So, no, I'm looking forward to the rest of the season, no doubt.
Now, we've got Calder coming up in July. Different kind of track, but more sprint racing.
Yeah, more sprint racing and a sort of circuit that will bring the field together. I mean, if Wanneroo brings the field together, Calder will be something else. There'll be 25 cars within a second. And in the middle of winter, who knows about the weather? So, stay tuned for the next exciting episode.
Well done.
Thank you.
Well, Greg Murphy, third place. That will help the championship aspirations.
No, it's great for the team. The guys did a great job today. It was a bit of a handful out there, like it was for a lot of guys, and the last race was pretty tight with Steve right up my bum. So it was great. It was a good day, and it's great to be on the podium, and it is good for the championship. That's the most important thing.
It was a great battle with you and Junior. Now, does that mean that you like these sprint races maybe a little bit more?
No, not really. I think we've got a good mix personally. I think a couple of sprint races is good, and the rest endurance. I'm really enjoying the endurance races. They are exciting. I think they're great for the crowds. Obviously, you wouldn't want to do an endurance race here, so it's perfect for a sprint race. So, I think we've got a good mix.
And after the 3 heats here, this is what it looks like for the round 6 results in the overall. Radisich takes 288 on the day from Mark Skaife and Greg Murphy, as we just saw. Interesting further down to look at Ingle, then Craig Lowndes, Stephen Johnson, Todd Kelly, Jason Bright, Stephen Richards and Cameron McConville. Radisich was awesome today. 2 wins today, a win yesterday, and then that pole position, quite an extraordinary performance. So he takes the trophy and the laurel wreath. Ross Brodie from Shell Australia making the presentation to Paul, certainly making amends for that difficult run that he had at Canberra, because he really buried himself after the mishap in qualifying. Here's the situation in the championship points overall after 6 rounds. Skaife consolidates his lead, 16-12, plays Jason Bright 15-03, then Russell Ingle 12-68, so it's all holding up the top. Then Stevie Johnson, the first of the Fords. Greg Murphy, he's moved up. Marcus Ambrose, tough day for him. Then Stephen Richards for FTR in 7th. Todd Kelly, didn't he have a great battle with Craig Lowndes? Craig has moved up in 1 position, and Glenn Seaton in the wars today, damage to a tyre, and then obviously having problems with the engine there at the end of the game. Well, Barry Sheen, an interesting round. We returned to the old format, and Radisich was just unstoppable.
Well, it was really good. I think today's show, it's good to have a bit of change, isn't it? But having said that, I think that the pit stop thing is the way to go, because it really gives, everybody within the team a bit of a crack crack of the whip. And as you saw today, I mean, if you look at the 18th, 20th sort of spot in the race, you know, it's so difficult for people to get past here. And with the circuit the way it is, there's a lot to be said for the pit stops.
And something of a Ford revival. I mean, clearly it's still holding at the top of the points table, but it is good to see some more balance in there. And I think it's so close between those two top teams and leading cars at the moment.
Well, it is. You know, you see DJR team is obviously the hot Ford team. You know, the Stone brothers had a really lousy weekend now, but it's nice to see Dick Johnson with a smile on his face, because it's not a pretty sight when he's not smiling.
Now, I know you were a bit filthy this morning about the traffic coming in here. I mean, the upside is that we had an awesome crowd here today, but that brings with it some problems.
Well, it does. You know, I think the spectators deserve better, really, you know, because there were people when the first race started today, then there were people turning round and going home because they couldn't get in, you know, and I just think it's a little unfair on people. You know, it's okay for us, we can go down the outside, get nicked by the police or whatever it is, but the police were really good, you know. It's just the fact that the way it's designed here, it's not conducive to a big crowd.
Just picking up on the comments that Mark Scaife made in the interview there a moment ago, Barry, we go to Calder next, and it'll be the same format. It's only 2 rounds this year where we have the sprint format instead of the compulsory pit stops, and it's a track that brings the cars together. It's going to be on there.
It really is. I mean, there's no doubt about it. As he said, if you reckon this is bad, you wait till you see Calder. Calder is going to be, I reckon, the top 25 in about 0.6 of a second.
Well, it's certainly going to be interesting. We're now getting into the crucial second half, and in the not too distant future we've got some endurance racing, so it's all going to change. But we've got a heap of great motorsport to come tonight. Round 8 of the Superbikes coming from San Marino. That'll be after sports tonight. Once again, check your local guide for details. And then tomorrow we've got round 8 of the Kart World Series from Portland, Oregon. I can tell you that Max Pappas is on pole position for Team Rahal. And then the next time that we meet you for V8 Supercar Racing, round 7 of the championship from Calder Park Raceway, just outside Melbourne. And that's certainly going to be great. Well, we certainly hope that you have enjoyed yourself here this weekend watching round 6 of the championship. Been a great weekend for Paul Radisich. On behalf of the entire 10 Motorsport team, thanks for being with us. Look forward to seeing you in Melbourne in a few weeks from now.
Paul Morris and Mark Lane. Oh, wow.
I hope he gets out of that in a hurry.